previous raping of the land, or whatever you want to call it, okay, back at the turn of the 19th century or in the 1900s, okay, the logging industry clear-cut the forest, okay, so do we ban logging? No, we made strides, okay, we have the technology now. Nobody wants to ban logging at this point in time, okay?
Because, you know, when environmentalists protest against, you know, cutting down trees, the ironic thing is that, you know, they are pro-renewable energy, but wood is actually renewable. Trees do grow back, so.
You know, we did begin to talk a little bit local issues and not being exactly from here, I'm not familiar with the specifics on Royal Stock, but that's a dialogue that needs to happen. And, you know, looking at that history, looking what's taken place in these different areas, and personally knowing what the DCNR has gone through with their land management plans and what they do is extensive. And I think on the other side of things, you have a picture being made out by the anti-fracking movement that companies moving into this forest are taking over and just doing what they want with the public's land. And it's not that way whatsoever. There's extensive planning that goes into it. And, you know, the trails and things that they use were trails made and used by the logging operations in the past. And it is a state forest, which means it's managed, it's used, it's not a park. There's differences between state park, state forest, national parks, national forests. This is an ongoing history and something they've been doing in these different parks and areas for years. So, you know, just wanted to bring it back a little bit local there, you know.
98.5 SBI. Would you agree that there are some areas possibly that should be banned from fracking? And also, I was wondering, during your investigation, which thank you very much for the very informative documentary. I think it was extremely successful in debunking the gas line. But did you not come across any negative impact stories other than the collateral damage that you mentioned? You know that the gas companies responded to and took care of. Might there have been any other farmer stories that were horror stories that just didn't, you know, fit into the message of the movie?
You would think that we'd hear them. Honest to God, because of the way the media is, you would think they would be on the front page of everything. And, you know, for a long time, the only bad story that they could get out of Dimmock was there was an empty coffee cup in one of the, you know, one of the pits. I mean, that was front page news. That was as bad as it got. And you know, the reprimand there was, you know, pick up your trash around the work site. But that made the front page. So if there's an issue, like what you're saying, are there any issues out there? You better believe we would see them if they were there. And as a landowner, if there are issues that we're not aware of, that's going to spread like wildfire. And we're going to hear about it. Within our neighborhoods, we don't find out about it by going to, you know, Chester County or Bucks County and finding out about there. They don't know. They don't know what's going on. They don't have a clue. Because what we hear is innuendo. You know, I was there yesterday in a short conversation with someone. They completely mistook what I said, ran with it to the internet, and tried to trash me on it. Well, I mean, that's not journalism. That's not fact finding. That's not. It doesn't help us solve problems. You know, and so there's a lot of that, unfortunately, grabbing a little piece of information and running with it. So, you know, that's just something I would bring up about that.
And so to answer this young lady's question, and Trevor and I were in his studio earlier, and we got an extensive interview with him about his organization, about why they bought this movie here. Starting next week on 88.5, we're going to dedicate the entire week to hearing both sides of this issue. We also have a team next door that's right now also taping their questions and answers. Thank you didn't give your names, but we're going to be airing a lot of this next week because apparently this is an issue that has brought a lot of attention not only to our region, but to the citizens of our region. What we're trying to do at XBI is to make sure that we give exposure to both sides of this issue. And then what we're also in the process of doing is we're going to create a forum and a platform to show both of these films to the citizens of our region and we've already invited Trevor to come back. We're inviting Josh Fox to come back and give you guys an opportunity to ask them some legitimate questions based on what you see and what you hear on the radio. How would you guys like to see that happen?
You say you're going to have a live thing with the two of them?
Yes, we're going to have a live. Matter of fact, we're going to work on in the near future obtaining a facility large enough to hold a lot of people. And we're going to make sure that we create a platform so that we can bring these guys back and to make sure that we create a venue where the legitimate people or people can express their legitimate concerns and that they can answer them. Because it sounds like to us at XBI that you have two organizations that are advocating on behalf of people who are concerned, the farmers on one hand, and then the citizens and the residents who are concerned about the forest and the economy. And so I think it only be wise that we create a platform where we guys, and thank you for asking your question, we're going to create a platform where we can get both of these sides to actually understand each other's point of view and hopefully, like I said, answer a lot of questions that you guys have about this issue. Okay?
Are states now increasing the regulations and increasing the look at it? As I look at it, like New York, are there any states that are increasing regulations now as far as looking at whether they should be doing it or not? Governor Cuomo just came out and said that he was going to let science dictate, and he said, okay, go ahead and do it. It appears to be what I'm reading. Are there any states that say, oh no, we're absolutely not doing it?
Well,
I mean, here you got all the scientists there who they're paying to do all these things, and you should be listening to the scientists. And if they say, go ahead and do it.
exactly, and you know, right now, to my knowledge, you know, we've got New York State. That's where it's, you know, all the brakes have been put on. Harkening back to another question was, do you think that should be some moratorium, you know, places where they shouldn't drill and shouldn't frack? You know, if there's a public consensus on a public land, you know, you can have that debate in a public forum, but the public can't go and tell the private landowners what they can and can't do with their land. I mean, we're going back to the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. If you're going to take private land for public consumption, someone must be reimbursed for that taking.
Well, that's not quite all true, because they can do forced pooling. Some areas do forced pooling.
No, you're talking about a whole different animal there, and that's something to be very, very careful of. When we start talking about forced pooling, which does not apply to the Marcellus, you're talking about a whole different thing that, unfortunately, there's been people that know a little bit about it, and I don't know where you fall in that, but when people are presented with forced pooling, they get scared. And that's something, now, you know, we see Gasland 1, we debunk it, they move the goalpost, you know, and that's something that comes up now, you know, all right, well, what about forced pooling? That's a taking. No, let's go back. There's an instance where I'm going to talk about my organization a little bit. We're going to the mat in Harrisburg, you know, on behalf of landowners that, you know, if certain drilling rules are being changed because they need to be updated, we are dealing with some antiquated rules, and it needs to be improved on the state level. You know, in just about all the cases, the gas companies are superseding what is required of them in what they do. The rules are falling behind, but we need to bring up these rules for the landowners, and that's what we're doing. And in an issue like pooling, we are going to be the ones that are drafting this, and that's why it's important for people that are concerned about this to get together with us and move forward and move. You know, I am sure that in the future, if someone wants to do pooling, we will have a big educational seminar here, just like we've done in the past, and we'll go through it point by point by point by point. But I'm not going to even touch it right now because this isn't the forum to get confused, period, because it's confusing.
Okay. Thank you very much for coming and for this discussion.